Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Choir Directors Academy. I am your host, Angela Elaine. It's so good to be here with you on tonight. Thank you for tuning in and dropping by to hang out with me a little bit. Do me a favor, like and share this video. Please do that and get the word out to others that are choir directors and want to improve their departments. There is so much involved in getting your choir to sound the way you want it to. You know, it's possible. I know sometimes we look at the various artists and their choirs, you know, Dexter and Zion Movement. You got Ricky Diller, and you even have some local choirs that are very, very good in what they do. Two of the biggest factors that affect how your choir sounds is balance and blend. Those are two major pieces. And you all have noticed it. You know, sometimes our ears have to be tuned to pick it up. But you've noticed it. Like sometimes when you hear a choir, I can tell when a choir is not used to singing with mics close up to them, because then when they place mics in front of them, you know, sometimes you hear some live streams and that one person is like way over everybody else. They're like screaming in the mic and you can't hear anybody else but them. That means that there is a blend problem, right? In each section, that one person should not sound. If you have all altos, I should not hear one alto over everybody else, as opposed to balance, which means the whole choir sounds good. All right, we're going to get into that. I got one of those questions from one of the followers from the show, and I thought it was pretty interesting. They had a very, very loaded question, and I was kind of like, they sent it to my inbox, and I'm sitting there going, it's going to take more than just, you know, that's too much to type. I might as well just do a show on it. I said, because I'm sure other people are not as familiar with it as you are. So it's better that I just take the question and handle it. Actually, I had three, but I said I would start with this one and kind of give everybody some insight into it. This is not something that you can learn overnight, okay? It takes time, patience, and persistence in order to do this. But first of all, as the director, you need to be aligned with it, because sometimes I see people have, and I'm not. This is not a put down or anything. Like I said, I happen to be like a third, fourth generation choir director, so a lot of things I just know. Which it doesn't matter to me how many people I have. It's all going to sound the same. I don't care. It's the director that forms the choir. It's the director that teaches the choir. What was that movie? Drumline, when he said the band is only as good as the director. It's the same thing with a church choir. You don't have to be like masterful and have all these degrees and everything. You just need to have an ear for it, and that's a God-given gift. Okay. But the question, I'm going to put it up here so you all can see it. The question was, what is the difference between balance and blend? Is there a difference? How do they operate together? Why is it important? The answer to the first part, is there a difference? Yes. What is the difference? There's a big difference, a difference that's enough for us to teach about it. Is there a difference? Yes. Do they operate together? Yes. And why is it important? Okay, first of all, let's define balance. Balance is the volume of a group of voices, or a choir, a chorale, or whatever. It means that no group, whether sopranos, altos, and tenors, no group is louder or softer than the other. They all sound the same. And we're going to get more into that, okay? Blend, on the other hand, is when the voices in that section are indistinguishable. Or you have 7 altos and all of them sound alike. It sounds like one person up there singing with a volume to it. Okay. It is possible. It's possible. Let me tell you, it's possible. And it doesn't, sometimes it's easier to get that with a smaller group as opposed to having a larger group. Sometimes it's easier. But I'm going to walk you through this so you can kind of get an understanding, and then we will go from there. First of all, let's go back to balance. Balance is a volume of a group of voices. No group is louder or more distinguishable, or louder or softer than the other. Balance is not based on the number of people. A lot of times people think that is based upon the number of people. And that's why so many people strive. Hey, Isaiah and Linda, good to see you. Sorry, YouTube, I can't really see you, but I know you're out there because I have more people on the YouTube side than I have on Facebook. So, hey, you can put your name out there in the comments and then I can give you a shout out. Balance is not based on the number of people in a choir, in a praise team, or whatever. And that's one thing we have to kind of lose. The idea that the more people I have, the better I sound. Actually is the opposite. The less people you have, you're more able to control, you're more able to teach. And that's why mass choirs sound so muffled, because you don't have time to really teach them. You're just trying to make sure that everybody's in tune. You're not really working on enunciation, pronunciation, timing, phrasing. You're not really working on that. You're just trying to get this mass of people to sing a song, right? But if you're working on, if you're trying to get your local choir or praise team or whatever to be balanced, it's not on the number of people, but it's the frequency or the sound, the frequency on which they sing. Each voice has its own frequency, right? And we're going to get more into that later on. Each one has its own frequency. You can't really be balanced without blending. But at the same time, there's a difference between blending the voices and balancing them, okay? When we think of blending, let's go back to that definition. Blend is when the voices in a section are indistinguishable. 2 or more people, or 6 or 7 people, that however many you got in that section, they all sound like one. And you may say, well, that's impossible. No, if you think about siblings, you have all of these family groups, family singers. They all can just sing together and they sound so good. Part of that is genetics. Part of it is genetics, but they just have, I don't know. When I sing with my sister and my niece, I hear them, and people say, you all, my niece is 12, and then my sister and I, of course, we're older, we're 10 years apart. But when they hear us sing, they say, you all sound so good together. You just sound like you're all. Well, part of that is genetics. And 2, we listen to one another. You can't blend with somebody if you don't listen to them. Right? That's how come siblings and relative cousins and all of them sound good when they all sing together, because they it's innate in them. There's a genetic connection, but they're also listen to one another. A lot of times when you hear one person singing louder than everybody else, it's because they're not really listening. They're doing their own show. All right. An example of that would be like a cake. You can take all the ingredients. Is what, 3 or 4 or 5 ingredients? Hey, Stephanie, good to see you. It's a bunch of ingredients that are made that make up a cake, right? You have the mix, you have the eggs, you have the milk, you have whatever else you throw in there. Everybody has their own recipe. If you look at it, just throw it all in there and don't mix it. Then you can see the mix, you can see the eggs, you can see the milk, you can see the cake mix, you can see whatever you added into there. It's not blended. But once you stir it all up and mix it all together, then everything kind of looks the same, right? It's just, okay, all you got to do is just pour it in the pan and put it in the oven and it all rises up together. That's blending. When you're teaching people how to sing, you have to, first of all, you cannot get wrapped up in the song per se. You have to be able to step out, separate yourself from them, and actually listen. Because if you stand back and listen, I don't even have to go to rehearsal. I'm tuned to listening to people, different choirs when they sing, and I can almost point out the people right away who it is that's not listening to everybody else. Because if you're not listening, just like people when they get in an argument with somebody and they're not listening to what you're saying, they just screaming and hollering and talking, and you can tell they're not even listening to you. They just talking. They hear you making a sound, and they're not trying to understand what you're saying. They just, they're just going at it. Same thing that keeps the choir, that section, from blending and sounding like one voice. Okay. Let's go to balance. As I mentioned before, balance is not based on the number of people in the choir, but on the frequency. let's think about that. And, we always got this ongoing battle between sopranos and the altos. You know how you get these memes going around saying that, you got 4 sopranos and you got all them altos, and the sopranos can outsing the altos. Let me let you in on something. We've been programmed to pay attention to high frequencies. That's why the sopranos always sing the melody and the high frequency. They on the high side. I won't get it all into the technical frequencies. You can kind of Google that. But they sing on the higher frequencies, up, around C4. We all know middle C is 0, C0. And then you have, the ranges, and they're usually up high around the 3s and the 4s. C3 and C4. I'm staying with middle C to keep it simple. All right. But think about it. We've been programmed to listen to high-pitched frequencies, sirens, ambulance, police, what's the one? The weather sirens. They're all at a very high-pitched sound. Even when we grow up as children, if a person talks to us in a low tone, chances are we're not going to pay any attention. You're only going to hear a warning if it's loud and if it's high. If it can be loud and low, yeah, okay, you just dismiss it because it's a low tone, is not as piercing to your ear. But we have grown to do that. So that's why when the sopranos sing, it doesn't take a whole lot of them, because we're already programmed to hear the light voice. And the sound of it, the high frequency, the sound is greater. All right, it doesn't really take that much. But the alto voice is a lower frequency. And it's the low end of a woman's voice, and it takes a little more of the chest voice to get it out, more power in order to get that note out. All right. So that's one of the reasons the sopranos carry the melody, and we, alto, I'm proud to be an alto. I'm a very strong alto. I can hold my own against a whole bunch of sopranos. Okay. Not bragging, but that's just facts. But and it's the same thing with the tenors and the bass. The tenors are the higher male pitch, and the bass are the lower ones. And that's a lot of times, if you have 4-part harmony, SATB, you can hear the sopranos and the tenors. And generally, if you're trying to balance the choir, you're going to tell the sopranos and the tenors to come down, because of the frequencies at which they sing. They can overpower the altos, and you steady telling the altos and the tenors to resonate in the chest to project your voice so that we can get more volume. Generally, and also in the soprano section, you have a lot of sopranos that actually sing in alto, right? And they should be in the soprano section, but they're lazy. And that's how, and if you don't sing, if you're not in the proper section when you sing, and you really can't produce the volume that you need. If you have sopranos singing alto, which is the low end of their range, they can't really sing loud like they should, because that's not their range. That's not where they should be. They should be in the soprano section. But when you're trying to balance, right, you have to stand back and listen. And I find, a lot of people have a difference of opinion, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. The easiest way for me to hear whether the choir is balanced is through a cappella singing, cutting out the music. We have become so adept that we can't do anything unless we have music. Unfortunately for me, one time I had the choir that way. I thought they were balanced. I couldn't hear because I had the music going, and I didn't realize what was going on until the electricity went out in the church, because the transformer went out and the organ and all that went out. And then when I heard the choir, that's when I realized, oh my God. So then I started taking the time to teach them. I recognized there was no balance and there was no blend. I could hear different altos over the other one. I could hear their vibrato. I could hear all of that. And then, the sopranos was way louder than the altos, and the tenors, I don't know, sometimes the tenors were louder than everybody, because I had some strong tenors. I used to call them 3 more tenors. They were very, very strong. So they will overpower the whole choir. So, you have to kind of tell everybody, you bring it down, you bring it up. And then you can also adjust the mics. If you have them in sections, you can also adjust the mics. But one of the best ways is to talk to them or teach them or listen to them in a cappella format. You can hear everything. I'm telling you, can hear everything. And it is the best way to go. Now, when it comes to blend, it's a little different. There are many different pieces. Balancing, all you have to do is kind of just get everybody, listen to them and kind of get everybody. Hey, Navika, good to see you. You kind of get everybody balanced, right? But when you're blending, that's a little bit different. That's where the real work. Hello, Isaiah. Good to see you too. That's where the real work comes in, is when you're trying to blend. There are 7 elements to blending. And I know some people like, look, I'm not trying to do all of that. I just want the choir to sound good or my praise team to sound good. But you know what? You need to understand these things. There are 7 elements to blending. And you may not know the technical definition of them, but a couple of these that you kind of work into your patterns anyway. It's volume, pitch, timing, timbre, vibrato, vowels, and nasality. And some people say nasal. I say nasality, but everybody pronounces it different. Isaiah, you can put it out there. You're a music major. You can put it out there as to what it really is. Okay, but volume. Volume really involves just listening. Most people don't listen to the person next to them. They just sing it. And it's like, stop singing. If you're blending, you have to be taught. I mean, I've been taught to do that. But when I sing with the altos, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't like to be right up under the mic because I know my voice kind of carries. And then I know how to bring it in to kind of level off those. I may have a weak person on this side. I may have a strong person on this side. But I learned to listen. First of all, I'm listening to my section mates to see where they are. Because, depending on how big the choir is, the sopranos may be all the way on over there. The monitors may not be working. So me being a musician, then I use the organ, the chords on the organ to try to see where I am and make sure I'm in tune with the organ and level with the fellow singers. All right. And most of the people do not, that controls your volume. You have to you have to teach the people to do that, because the average choir member doesn't do that. They just singing. You give them a song, they just singing. No, I need you to kind of hear the people that are around you. And that's why I said I work better with a smaller group, 12, 10, 12 people. I work better. I can handle the mass. But I like a smaller group, because then I can hear you and I can correct you and let you know, okay, you need to project. You need to, stand up, sit straight up, chin level with your lap, so that the sounds will come out, and listen to the people around you. There's nothing wrong with that. This is not a solo. This is for you to blend in with everybody, because if you're louder and you're not listening, you're going to throw the whole choir off. And I can't tell you, when I sang in high school, there were a lot of competitions we lost because we had one girl that she just would not blend in with the group. And she would just be towering. Her sounds would be towering. And the instructor had to constantly tell her to listen to your fellow mates. And, even when we were in the competition, we came in 3rd place. And they told us everybody looked good. All the other sections sound good. But that one girl in the alto section just knocked it out the park. She was too loud. So teach them to listen to the person around and not to depend. See, there's an interdependence. You don't want to be dependent on the person where I can't sing unless these 2 people are with me. No, that's not what we want. Neither do we want you to be independent, because then that's when you're going to sing over everybody. You have to learn to be interdependent, in that I'm independent enough to learn my part on my own. I can sing it on my own if I have to. But at the same time, I'm dependent on my fellow singers, in that I want to blend in or have one sound with them. Okay. So volume is like the biggest one that everybody needs to work with. And like I said, for me, a cappella is the best way to hear it, or have your musicians in the rehearsal to bring the music down lower or softer, or bring the volume down so that you can hear the singers better. Pitch, how high or how low a note sounds. Everybody's pitch is different. Some people are born with perfect pitch. The average choir member is not. Okay, the average choir member is not. So that's why you hear them going up the scale, starting with C, and they're going up to say do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. They do all of that not only to warm up the voice, but to try to get you to hear. It's all about listening. Most of this is involving listening, which like I said, most people don't do. And you have to train the choir. It takes time. I'm telling you that it takes time. It's not something that can happen overnight. It's a little hard because that's not the way we've perceived choir. That's not the way we've been taught. Most of us, we've been taught, let the Lord use you. Just do what you do. But if you want a good sounding choir, it takes time, and you have to have patience in teaching them. They have to unlearn all that they have learned over the years. Timing, we all know about that. Not only in moving, but also in your singing. One person shouldn't sing a stanza or the beginning of a stanza quicker than the rest of the people. Sometimes you will hear that you have a jump start in the choir in that everybody's not paying attention. They may not be listening to the director or directress. And then they hold up the signal for us to start. And then you hear a domino. That is one of my pet peeves. If I'm standing in front of you, you know that I'm there to tell you what to do. Okay. I've given you the signal. I've talked to you and I've told you what we're going to do. And then you hear that domino effect. No, you got to come in once. As I was telling another choir director on the other day, a lot of people have a more of a laid back approach with it, but I have a competition. I'm more of a competition director. You got one time to get that note out right. When you're in a competition, you don't have 3, 4, 5, 6 chances. You can't go to the studio and fix it, right? You got one time. Everybody needs to be on point. Everybody comes in with the same force, whether it's pianissimo or super soft or super loud, whatever it is. Everybody has to sound one band, one sound, one choir, one sound. Everybody needs to hit that note at the same time, right? And that's where the timing comes in. You don't want to be too slow, too late. You want everybody to come in on time. Timbre is uniqueness of our voice. No two people technically sound alike. Even my sister and I, we have two different, our voices are totally different. But when we sing together, we actually blend. You can have different types of people. Everybody in the choir, their voice is different. But it takes a person with an ear to hear, to have them all to come together and blend. If all of them are singing if their volume is right, the pitch is right, the timing is right. When you blend all those voices together, it's such a melodious sound, so rich and full and complete, because all of the preceding ones are okay. Then we have vibrato. That's, a lot of people try to sound like they went to school at Juilliard, all of that. That's to me, that's not really important. If you got everybody, if the volume, the timing, the pitch, and all of that is okay. I'm not really big on that. That's what they taught us. I have my picks that I use that are chief focal points to pay attention to, but that is part of it. Vowels, enunciation. I can't tell you how many times, a lot of times with the choirs, we don't know what the choir is singing. We just recognize the music in the song. And I noticed they're doing much better now with the recordings where people are actually pronouncing the words. But there was a time when the choirs were singing, all you hear is, you can't hardly differentiate what they're saying. You got to find somebody that knows the words. And I always told my choir that people should be able to understand the message, what you're singing. Okay, yeah, we got the music right. Yeah, you got the movements and all of that. But they need to be able to understand what you're saying. That's part of the enjoyment, being able to understand what a person is saying. And, and for an example of that is if we're singing the sevenfold, amen, you got somebody saying, everybody's going, amen. This is to me is the proper way to say it. It just doesn't sound good saying amen. But, you know, you got some people that say, hey, man, you know, let's get it all in one. We're all going to say the same thing the same way, right? We're going to pronounce it all the same way. And, you know, sometimes you have a problem with that. Some people have grown up and they have not had to pronounce words. They slur the word. I mean, and I'm not denouncing anybody or anything like that. But if you have people in the choir that have not taken the time to really pronounce their words, that's a struggle. That's going to be a struggle for you to get all of them together. You got to kind of work with them and get them all together. And then nasal. You got a lot of people that sing through the nose. And they used to tell us, if you pinch your nose and you can still hear, you know, and you can still hear the nasal, then you're singing through your nose. I don't know. There are 3 sections. You know, you got chest voice, you got the throat voice, and you have the head voice. That is a problem because it's just all in the sound that is going to come out. And a lot of times that's a part of why the blend doesn't work. You have people singing in different levels. Some people singing from the chest, using the diaphragm to push the air out. You got some people, most choirs sing from their throat, which gives you an empty sound. And then you have those that sing from the up in the cavities in the head voice, right? And we usually use that for the high, you know, when you have somebody, you need them to hit that high note. Basically, that's where they come from. But the majority of our choirs sing from the throat, which is a very dangerous area to be singing. The throat, that's not where you should be singing. You should be singing. I would prefer that you sing from the chest voice because it resonates, and there's a fuller sound. But in most of our groups, people are singing whichever way. You have to teach them to sing from the chest voice, which resonates and gives a better sound, a better tone. And if you can get everybody there, get out of the throat and sing from that angle, they will sound much fuller and much better. And then it would make you easier. You start with the blending, but then it actually makes it easier for you to balance. Because if you have everybody singing from the chest voice, you know how they used to say, use your diaphragm to project your voice, right? Well, if you got everybody singing from your diaphragm, that's your balance right there. Because everybody, you know, we're all singing the same way. That's 90% of your balance right there. If you have, like I said, in my choir, my biggest thing was getting my tenors to come in because I had 3 men that knew that I had trained how to sing. And they sang they would be so loud. And it's like, I would have to try to tell them, you know, I didn't want them in the throat, but I had to kind of bring it up because you're drowning out the women, you know, and I had a good size. I had 3 men and the rest of them were women, you know, 4 or 5 in each section. And they had strong voices, but those male voices just dominated the playing. So that helps with the balance, as if it got everybody singing the same way. But blending takes a little more effort, as you see, is more pieces. So it takes more time to get people to understand what you're saying. Again, we've been programmed for a lot of different things and to be aware of your surroundings. Isaiah said vibrato on steroid barking. Yeah. He said excessive barking. And it's true. He said vibrato on steroids barking. Excessive bark. I hate it. I need to know what you're saying. And say exactly. Just noise. And it's kind of bad. You know, it's just, you kind of sit there and you're like, you're just killing the song because I'm sitting there listening to you. And it hurts, you know, I'm sitting there thinking my voice starts getting a little aggravated, a little hurt because I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, how are you doing this? But that's something that's so just to give you a high level, very high level to, you know, you almost have to be like a music major or go to a workshop to really get into the deep dive, should I say, of blending versus balance. But like I said, if you can get everybody to just sing the correct way in your blend, you will definitely have the balance in the group. And you'll be surprised they sound so good. That's how come Ricky Dilla's choir, Dr. Ricky Dilla's choir sounds so well, is because everybody sing, you know, they've been trained. And, you know, like I said, a lot of them are ministers of music, but that doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a lot of great singing anyway. Just because everybody's a minister of music, because that's a whole nother story right there. But because they all know how to listen to one another as they're singing, because each of them have different voices. But you notice, if you ever really listen to them, the sopranos sound very crisp, very clean. Even the altos, even though they're lower, they sound very crisp and very clean. And then you have your tenor section, very clear, very crisp, and very clean. And then, but they balance each other out. And some sections have more than the other, but they've learned how to balance out. And that comes through practice and perseverance. And that's all I got. So I hope I helped you all. Listen, like and share the video. I mean, this is, this part of being a choir director, a lot of people don't really get into, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to know that part. But you know what? You need to understand, if you want to be good at what you do, then you have to take the entire education. All right. This is not true choir directing. Is not something that can be done overnight. You really need to practice and put in the effort within yourself and get taught yourself, and then you can take it and train the other person. I hope I said something to help you on the night. I know this was more of a technical session instead of the other types, but this is information that you need to know. All of us need to know. And if you implement it and try to work on it and implement it, I promise you, your choir will sound much, much better over time. Listen, thank you, all of you, for tuning in on tonight. Thank you, Isaiah, for this wonderful question. We have quite a few more. I told him, I said, he's kind of set the show for the next 3 weeks, but I have other questions coming up, so I'm going to try to mix them up for you all. But listen, thank you. Like, share this video. Thank you for tuning in on tonight. And I hope you have a lovely evening and a lovely rest of the week. Thank you all. Peace.